At 14:47, a Ukrainian MiG-29 quietly slipped across the Russian border. Only 90 seconds into enemy airspace, and on its pylons hung two French-made bombs, a deadly gift meant for a border guard post Moscow believed untouchable. Before the pilot lay two paths. Either he would sever a vital Russian supply line into Ukraine or return in failure, leaving his comrades to continue taking fire from convoys of munitions pouring through. But after just 6 seconds, fate turned. He flew at treetop level, avoiding radar, carrying a paper map taped to his knee because his GPS was jammed, the fuel gauge falling fast. And at the moment when every calculation had to be perfect, a crow suddenly slammed into the intake. The left engine screamed, compressor blades spinning at 13,000 RPM were shredded. The MiG lurched left, plunging into the green forest. By instinct, the pilot applied right rudder, pulled back on the stick, and attempted an engine restart. The aircraft fell to 180 meters, then 160. Trees flashed past the nose, mere meters away. He had 10 seconds to save his life. Meanwhile, a few kilometers away, a Russian Podlet K-1 radar station had just caught an odd return. But the duty operator left to get coffee, letting the contact drift by. When the left engine coughed back to life, the jet had burned nearly all its fuel reserves, and the dangers did not stop. Transmission lines suddenly appeared across the valley ahead. At 650 kilometers per hour, the pilot had 2 seconds to react. He pulled 5G, nearly blacked out, the MiG straining to clear the wires by only 10 meters. The fuel needle showed only minutes remaining. But in the distance, the familiar map landmark, the bend in the Desna River, came into view. He knew he had only one chance. At 14:41, he reached the initial point for the attack, 50 kilometers to the target. He put the jet into a vertical climb, piercing the sky. 6 Gs, 7 Gs pressed on his body. His vision dimmed and narrowed into a black tunnel. The left engine vibrated violently, threatening to tear itself apart. Radar warnings blinked relentlessly. Then, disaster. The French bomb control system froze, reporting a connection error. There was no time. From 72 kilometers away, a Russian Su-35 fired an R-37M, a Mach 6 air-to-air missile. 36 seconds until death. The missile warning screamed. The Ukrainian pilot could not evade yet. He still had to release the bombs. He switched to manual mode, trembling fingers pressing the pickle release for each weapon. 1 second, 2 seconds. The first weapon left the pylon as its rocket motor ignited. The second followed. The bombs climbed to their apex and then dived toward the Bela Beryansk border post. Only then did he flip the jet and execute a split S, driving earthward. 9 Gs crushed him into the seat. Vision went black. When it came back, he was at 4,000 meters. The Russian missile still bore down. He fired flares and activated electronic countermeasures, but the systems overheated and shut down. The missile was 10 kilometers away. Nothing remained but the notch maneuver, turned perpendicular to the missile's path to null relative motion. The MiG rolled sharply. The seeker on the R-37M lost lock. The missile passed behind the MiG and self-destructed, shrapnel tearing small holes in the rudder. But the MiG survived. He poured everything into getting low, hiding in the trees. Behind him, the 2 French bombs fell from the apex, beginning their fateful dives. Above, the Ukrainian pilot clung to his crippled jet. He knew that if he succeeded, the post would burn, and the Russian supply line would be cut. If he failed, at least he would have written an epic of a mission that held the world's breath. 4 minutes of quiet passed in the sky. The 2 French bombs raced on, cut off from satellite guidance, relying only on infrared eyes that could not see clearly in the blinding light. In combat, things rarely go according to plan. This time was no exception. The first bomb broke down right at its rocket motor. Fuel contaminated with water vapor during refueling, froze at altitude, and then vaporized in the combustion chamber. Instead of full thrust, it produced only 60% power for a shorter time than programmed. The guidance computer, a French-designed processor the size of a wallet, recalculated immediately. This trajectory would make the bomb impact roughly 2 kilometers short of the target. Disaster followed disaster. Near Bryansk, a Krasuka 4 electronic warfare system ramped to full power, spraying 1,000 watts of carefully tuned noise across GPS frequencies. Signals from satellites 20,000 kilometers above transmitting at just 0.025 watts, vanished in an instant. Both bombs lost satellite navigation simultaneously and were forced to switch to inertial navigation. I see the imperfection in this mission: engines failing, bombs jammed, weapon systems glitching. Yet it is precisely this patched-together risky struggle that makes the victory monumental. It came not from absolute power, but from the refusal to yield. A Ukrainian pilot, flying with a paper map taped to his knee, dared to challenge Russian radar, duel with a Su-35, and dive through the fire of Pantsir guns. This was not recklessness, but the creed of better to die fighting than live in humiliation. What moves me most is the ending. The MiG-29 limping home, one engine broken, the pilot nearly unconscious from overload. He did not return with the polished image of a flawless victory, but behind him a Russian border post lay in flames. That is the brutal truth of modern war. No perfection, only success or failure. And this time, Ukraine succeeded. From my perspective, this mission is proof. Courage and ingenuity can still shake walls of steel that seemed unbreakable. It reminds the world that Ukraine is not fighting to prove strength, but to secure existence. And each step they achieve, no matter how small, is evidence that independence and the longing for freedom can never be crushed. Thank you for staying with this intense story until the very end. If you found it meaningful and want to continue this journey with the channel, please hit subscribe, give a like, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss upcoming videos. Wishing you peace, and see you in the next episode. Mechanical gyroscopes began to accumulate error, 2 meters of drift per second. By the time they reached the target, they would be 480 meters off. For ordinary weapons, that would mean failure. But the French design had accounted for this scenario. They switched to INS and infrared terminal guidance. By then, the sun had become the enemy. At 1449, the sun sat directly in the bomb's approach path. When the infrared seeker on the second bomb activated at 3,000 meters, it immediately locked onto the sun. The optics saturated. The processor registered a heat source of 5,778 Kelvin, clearly not a ground target. It broke lock and searched again. There was nothing but blinding white glare. For 15 seconds, the bomb flew blind, 4 kilometers with no terminal guidance. INS error accumulated. Trajectory degraded. The bomb's processor ran hot, cycling through image processing algorithms, glare filtering, edge detection, contrast enhancement, spectral analysis. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, the first bomb struck a powerful wind shear at 5,000 meters altitude. An 80-knot stream knocked it off trajectory, sending its gyroscopes tumbling and the bomb into a slow spin. Its tiny processor now faced a life-or-death equation. Stabilize the flight path with only 45 seconds left before impact. The S-400 battery at Clovo picked up the signal. 2 small objects falling fast. Radar cross-section just 0.2 square meters. Too small for aircraft, too fast for helicopters, and not on a ballistic missile profile. But orders were clear. When in doubt, fire. 2 48N6 missiles shot skyward. Yet this was an uneven fight. Missiles designed to intercept aircraft, not free-falling bombs. The computer could not solve the intercept. Both warheads streaked past uselessly, self-destructing in mid-air. At 2,000 meters altitude, a miracle appeared. The first bomb, having spun out of the sun's glare, finally let its infrared seeker catch 3 BTR-82A armored vehicles with engines running hot below. Lock achieved. The second bomb, still blinded by the sun, switched tactics. It shifted to shape recognition. The roofline of the border post formed a clear, symmetric pattern. Lock achieved. But Russia still had one last card, the Pantsir S-1 system, the close-in shield. Its radar could track bullets. Its missiles could swat down rockets. Yet there was one fatal flaw. The bombs were plunging nearly vertical from the sky. When radar acquired them, they were only 900 meters above ground. Pantsir's missiles required at least 1,200 meters for their fuses to arm. The math gave no chance. Even so, the crew fired. 4 missiles erupted from their tubes, streaking upward. By the time their fuses armed, the bombs were already beneath them. The rockets self-destructed, raining fragments harmlessly down. The 30mm autocannons opened up next, spewing 2,500 rounds per minute. But the barrels could only elevate to 85 degrees, while the bombs were plunging at nearly 87 degrees. Thousands of tungsten-cored rounds ripped the air, but missed by meters. 1451. The first bomb smashed through the roof at 312 meters per second, 340 kilograms of steel and explosive. The kinetic strike alone could have collapsed the building, but the shaped charge warhead delivered far worse. A jet of superheated copper moving at 8 kilometers per second sheared diagonally through the entire structure. The post did not crumble straight down, it toppled sideways like a tree felled by an axe. 17 seconds later, the second bomb arrived. Its spiral trajectory put it a few meters off, but 227 kilograms of steel and explosive was more than enough to obliterate the BTR cluster. Each vehicle's 500-liter diesel tank vaporized, mixing perfectly with the air. The shaped charge ignited the cloud. A fuel-air explosion flashed to 4,000 degrees Celsius for 1.3 seconds, turning the compound into a furnace. Far to the west, the MiG-29 dragged itself back into Ukrainian airspace on one dying engine, fuel needle scraping empty, the pilot half-conscious from brutal G-forces. Behind him, the Bela Berezovka border post burned. The mission wasn't perfect, wasn't clean, but it was successful. And on the battlefield, that is the only thing that matters. I see clearly this was not just a military strike, but a vivid symbol of Ukraine's resilience in an unequal war. That MiG-29 pilot, with trembling hands but an unshaken heart, entered deadly skies just to carve out a fragile chance for the comrades below. In every second of tension, from a bird crippling his engine, to bombs glitching, to dueling Russia's most modern air defenses, we see war is never a mechanical game. It is where human will and a nation's destiny collide with the limits of technology. This story deepens my respect for Ukraine's spirit of resistance. They know their enemy is stronger in weapons, manpower, and resources. Yet in that imbalance, every success, no matter how fragile or messy, becomes a spark of hope. Those bombs did not just level a border outpost. They shattered the arrogance of a power that believed itself untouchable, itself